Hi, this is Erica here with Griffin Street Productions, and this tutorial is going to show you how to make curved paragraph text on a path in Adobe Illustrator. So this is something I was looking for because you can see the straight text going around this circle is not going to cut it. I needed this paragraph text on a path, and there isn't really a good way to do this. Of course, you can use the warp tool, you can do multiple paths and link them to create threaded text. But I needed to figure out a different solution, and I didn't see another tutorial on the web for how to do this, so I decided I would figure out and make one. So first, let's start with a new document. I'm just going to call this paragraph text on circle. And I'm going to set this up for print in inches with an 8.5 by 8.5 inch square artboard. This is kind of arbitrary. This is based on the specific project I'm currently working on, but it's a good place to start. So I want to make two concentric circles. The outer circle needs to be 8 inches wide. The inner circle is going to be 3.5 inches. And you can select all. Make sure you're aligning to the artboard and center both of them vertically and horizontally on your artboard. And now we need to divide this circle into sections. So there's a few tutorials out there about how to do this. I'm just going to click the line tool, and then I'm going to click near my artboard, and that's going to bring up the dialog box. I'm going to select 8.5 inches because I want this to divide my circle. And I'm not going to worry about lining it up just yet. So I have one, I'm going to Control-C, Control-V to copy and then paste that line. This second line, if I highlight it, right-click, I can rotate it. And depending on how many sections you need, you just have to do a little bit of math. I'm going to do 10 sections, so I need to rotate mine 36 degrees, 360 divided by 10. And hit OK. So now I have two lines. Now I can Control-C and Control-V again. And if I Control-D, I can duplicate that rotation. So I'm going to do Control-C, Control-V, Control-D, Control-D, and just continue to do that until I have all of my sections lined up. Now Control-A to select all, and then center on my artboard horizontally and vertically. And voila, you can see that we have this wonderfully divided circle. Now I go to the Pathfinder tool, which I've already put in my toolbar on the right. If you don't have the Pathfinder tool here, go to Window, and you'll find it on the list of dialog boxes that you can open up. So with my Pathfinder tool, I'm going to select Divide. And that's going to create a chunk or a section or an object everywhere those lines intersect. Now they're still all grouped together. So I can Control-Shift-G, or I can go up to my menu bar, edit and ungroup. And now you can see that I have a separate section highlighted. I'm going to take care of all these little wedge shapes in the middle because I don't need those for the project. I just want the outer objects creating those segmented pieces of the circle. And if I pick one up and move it, you'll see it's now its own separate section. So I'm going to Control-Z to undo that. I want everything aligned up. And I'm just going to fill in each of these sections with some rainbow colors so that we can see them a little bit better, distinguish them. And this is basically part one. So we're creating kind of this old-fashioned rainbow parachute, if you ever played with those as a kid in the schoolyard, right? And once we have this, this is just going to be my bottom sort of background layer for this project. So I'm going to zoom out, Control- a couple times to zoom out, create a new layer on top of that, and I'm going to name my bottom layer Rainbow Circle. And my next layer is going to be the actual template for the text that we're about to create. So just like my regular circle, I want to create a 3.5 and an 8-inch circle and align them. So this time, remember, you're going to have to align to selection. We don't want it centered on the artboard. We're just using the play space on the left-hand side to get things set up. So they're aligned horizontally and vertically. And I'm just creating only an outline with no fill because this is just what we're going to use to create our lines on top of, and we're just using it as a guide. So now we want to use the arc tool, and that's where your line tool is that we use to divide the segment. So over on the left, if you hold your arrow key down on top of the line tool, you'll see the flyout menu that gives you the arc. And we need the radius to get the proper arc on this. So if the first circle, the inner circle, was 3.5 inches, we need 1.75 inches by 1.75 inches to create a quarter of a circle. Now, the slope can go concave or convex. If we do concave at -50, you'll see it creates the bottom arc, bottom left. If we do it +50, it creates the top right arc of the circle. I'm going to use the top right of the circle. It's absolutely arbitrary. You can use the -50 if you want. I'm just kind of showing you how this tool works a little bit. So that's my 3.5 inch tool, and I'm going to drag it on top of my circle template here and just roughly line it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I just need to make sure that I get the spacing right. So now the outer circle, of course, 8 inches, so we want the radius, which is 4 inches. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and I'm going to line that up with the outer circle. Now, if I highlight the circle underneath of it, the two complete circles, and delete them, we'll see that the two arcs are in exactly the right space that we need to create multiple lines. And to do that, we're going to create using the blend tool. So I highlight those. You can do the blend options first. You can also do it second. I like to do it second because, see, we have a specified distance. We can't preview it. If I go up and hit the blend make, you'll see that I actually have multiple lines. It looks like the edge of a record player, right? So now I'm going to go to my blend options, and now I can either specify a distance, which 0.03 is much too small. 0.05, we can preview that, say, hey, that looks pretty good. Or we can do a specified number of steps. I already know that I need to use about 12 steps to get the spacing that I need for the font size. And now if I highlight this, I only have the outer two, so I need to expand the whole shape in order to get separate individual lines. But I don't want to create any additional strokes or fills or anything like that. I just want to duplicate that object. So when I hit OK, you can see we now have 12 individual lines that are grouped together. If I ungroup these and select one and move it, you can see that I've created this individual line that is going to become a path that we can type on. So I'm going to select all of these and Control G to group them together again. And now I want to rotate it 45 degrees because I actually want this to be like the top of the circle. I'm going to use a piece of the segmented circle as another template to put on top of it and create the 1/10 of a circle segment that I need so that my paragraph fits perfectly within one of those segments. So 45 degrees. Now I'm just going to go grab the top keystone circle from my rainbow, Control C to copy, highlight my second layer, and Control V to paste it into my second layer. And now I'm going to line it up right on top. You can select all of these pieces together and center them if that helps. And now I want to use the scissor tool in order to trim the ends of those individual paths. And so I'm just laying the red part right on top of the lines because I don't need to see what's behind it. I just want to trim the edges away. Now you can do this a couple of different ways. I like more of the precision that I'm going to get from the scissor tool. And if you don't see your scissor tool, it's hidden inside the eraser box. So if you hover over the eraser box, the flyout menu will give you the scissor tool. You can also type C on your keyboard. And then you're just going to go up, and right where just about the line meets the red segment, I'm going to click. And it's going to add a node to that pathway. And it doesn't have to be perfect or precise. And if you accidentally click on the red, you can Control Z to undo that and just keep clicking down these paths, get them close, but like I said, it's really not a big deal because you're going to have variations on the text that goes on this path anyway. So once I've clicked and added a node to each one of these, I'm going to zoom out a little bit and show you if I click on the paths, there's a new node that shows up right next to the red template, and I can Control-Shift-G to ungroup all of these segments. And when I highlight them now, I can delete them, and I'm only left with that little bit of path to the left-hand side. So now I'm just going to repeat this process on the left-hand side. So the H key will get you your hand. You can move around your artboard and your art space. And then the C key to bring up your scissors. And then once again, just click each of the paths on the way down right next to that red template. I can just go ahead and delete all of those on the left. Now I'm going to highlight the red that I used as the template and delete it. I don't need it. And what I'm left with is 1/10 of a circle segment of 12 concentric lines, essentially. So I'm going to call this my test template. And this is where we're going to build our text on a path. Now, you could highlight all of these and go to Type, Threaded Text, Create, but what you end up with is text that's threaded to create and write upside down. So as far as I can tell, this is something you're going to have to do individually. It can be a little bit of a pain, but once you get the hang of it, it's super easy. So I'm going to do text on a path, and you'll see it has the little wavy line underneath of the T. And when I click on that top path, it turns red and disappears. And I'm going to type some things on there. You can see that I have the little red plus box, which means that I'm typing off the edge of my text area. But if I hover over the white box on the right, there's a bar and an arrow that shows up. And if I drag that over, you'll see my text will start to appear because my text is actually upside down on this line. Bam, there it is. Now to get it on the top, I'm going to go to the middle bar and hover until I see the bar with the up arrow, click it, and just drag it to the other side. And there I go. My text is now at the top. But now I need to connect this text and the text overflow to the next path. So to do that, I'm just going to type out some extra test text so that you can see more easily what happens when you overflow. You get that little white box with the red plus in it. Now with the path highlighted, if you go and click on that red plus and move your cursor away from it, it has in parentheses or in a little box some text. Once you see that floating text, you can select the next path and it draws a line to that next path. But now we have to flip the text over again, right? Just like we did the last time. So hover over the center bar until you see the flat bar with the up arrow and then drag it to the top of the line. And now we still have more text overflow. So on our second one, you click that white box, select the next path down, flip the text, and just repeat this for all of the paths that you created, these 12 concentric lines. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit because the process is the same for each one of these. I'm going to fill this up with some test text just so that we can see in our template what this is going to look like. Filled in on these paths, and everything is linked up. We have threaded text on a path. I'm just going to save my document. I'm saving it to the desktop, but obviously you can save this wherever you like. This is just a practice file to give you an idea of how to do this. And now I can center justify the text. You can see I get these beautiful curved lines of text. If I Control minus, I can zoom out a bit. And I can copy and paste this text multiple times around the circle. I can highlight it and change it. So I'm going to create another layer so that I don't keep working with my template. And I'm just going to call this red text, and that's where this text box is going to go. So I copy from my template layer, select my red text layer, Control V to paste, and now I have another copy of that in that third layer. And at this point, I can highlight my test text and just start typing. It works a lot like if you were to create a text box. You get a continuous flow of text around the curves for as long as your lines are. It's not perfect. You will have to make some adjustments every now and then depending on the type of text that you're using, how you're trying to format it. But generally speaking, this is a pretty good way to get nice, even, round text around a circle. If you don't like it so big, you can always move it down, adjust. You can highlight the whole thing, make all of your text smaller. You can use, obviously, different strokes and fonts and colors and weights and such on just pieces of it, certain words. And you can also shrink the entire thing so that it fits inside the red box if that's an important piece of your design element. I'm just going to repeat this a couple of times to give you an idea of how this flows around the outside of the circle. Control C from the red text, create a new layer for the orange text. Control V to paste it into the orange text layer. And then I'm just going to rotate this box. Center it in my orange segment. Whoops. Let me go back and lock that bottom layer down. Center the text on my orange segment. And now I can just create whatever I need to. This would be great for some kind of spinny game. If you had a spindle, I'm sure you could come up with some kind of crazy fortune-telling Wheel of Fortune game. But that's it. This is how to create, or at least mimic, paragraph text on a curve in Illustrator. And once again, if you have a better idea for how to do this, please let me know, because I looked all over before I decided I would have to try to figure this out. So thanks again. This is Erica here with Griffin Street Productions. I do tutorials of all kinds, sewing, cooking, computers, you name it. So if you have a suggestion for me, please just let me know in the comments, and have a great day.